Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bold and Beautiful today.
Finn angrily yells at Luna after Baker arrests her. Luna, in stark, devastating contrast, seemed carved from ice. Baker's large hand was firm on her upper arm, the cold steel of the cuffs glinting dully against her wrists, a stark symbol of her sudden, jarring transition from ally, confidant, perhaps even the fragile hope he'd dared to cling to, into something monstrous. She didn't flinch at his scream, didn't turn her head fully towards him. Her profile, pale and drawn, was impassive, almost serene, a carefully constructed fortress wall against the onslaught of his fury. Only the faintest tightening around her eyes, a microscopic tremor in the set of her jaw, betrayed that the words had landed, that the raw hatred in his voice had penetrated her defenses, even if she refused to acknowledge it outwardly. Her gaze was fixed straight ahead, towards the heavy door leading deeper into the station, towards processing, towards a future irrevocably altered. The silence she offered wasn't defiance, not exactly, it felt heavier, more profound, like the suffocating quiet after a bomb blast, thick with unspoken things and the deafening echo of Finn's accusation. Her very stillness in the face of his tempest was its own kind of violence, amplifying his sense of impotent rage. How could she not react? How could she stand there, shackled by the law for the ultimate shackle she'd placed on his soul, the murder of his brother, Alex, and show nothing? The accusation hung in the air, vibrating with the aftershock of his yell, far longer than the mere sound waves could account for. It wasn't just the words, it was the sheer, brutal history condensed within them. Crime. It encompassed the chilling premeditation he was certain lay behind Alex's death, the careful staging, the alibi meticulously woven from lies, the cold-blooded extinguishing of a vibrant life. It encompassed the months, the years of deception that followed, Luna weaving herself into the fabric of his grief, offering sympathy with the same hands he imagined tightening around Alex's throat, sharing memories with the same lips that had spun alibis. It encompassed the manipulation, the way she'd used his trust, his vulnerability in the wake of loss, perhaps even his burgeoning, complicated feelings for her, as a shield, a way to deflect suspicion, to remain close enough to monitor the investigation, to subtly steer it away from herself. It encompassed the sheer, breathtaking audacity of it all, the monstrous gamble she'd taken and seemingly won, until Baker, dogged, relentless Baker, had finally pieced together the fragments Finn himself had desperately, futilely tried to assemble. Every shared coffee, every late-night conversation dissecting the case, every tear she'd seemingly shed for Alex, it all coalesced in that moment, transformed by Finn's rage into evidence of her profound, unforgivable guilt. The crime wasn't just the act of murder, it was the ongoing desecration of his grief, the poisoning of his trust, the theft of his chance for true closure. She hadn't just killed Alex, she'd murdered Finn's peace, his faith in people, his ability to believe in innocence. Baker, standing solidly beside Luna, reacted with the weary professionalism of someone who'd witnessed countless eruptions of raw emotion in these sterile corridors. His grip on Luna's arm didn't slacken, but his own posture shifted minutely, becoming a more pronounced barrier between the prisoner and the storm that was Finn. His face, etched with the lines of long experience, remained impassive, but his eyes, sharp and watchful, flickered towards Finn with a mixture of understanding and caution. He'd seen this before, the dawning horror, the volcanic rage of the betrayed, the victim's loved one confronting the perpetrator. He knew the script. He didn't admonish Finn, didn't tell him to calm down, he understood the cathartic, necessary horror of the outburst. But his stance was clear, Luna was in custody, the process was in motion, and his primary duty now was to maintain order and ensure that process wasn't derailed by violence, verbal or physical. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod to the officer restraining Finn, a silent reinforcement of the hold. His focus remained on Luna, observing her reaction, her lack thereof, filing it away as potential data in the complex psychological profile he was undoubtedly building. He was the anchor in the storm, the embodiment of the cold machinery of justice that Finn desperately needed to believe in now, the only force capable of making his shouted promise, "You'll pay," a tangible reality. The environment itself seemed to recoil from the intensity of the moment. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed with a sudden, accusatory loudness, casting harsh, unforgiving shadows that seemed to deepen the lines of anguish on Finn's face and the impassive mask on Luna's. The scuffed linoleum floor, the faded posters about community policing, the distant clatter of a typewriter from another room, the mundane details of the precinct lobby became jarringly surreal, a banal backdrop to a scene ripped from a nightmare. The air felt thick, charged with ozone and unspent violence, heavy with the scent of rain clinging to clothes, cheap coffee, stale sweat, and the metallic tang of fear and rage. The few other people present, a desk sergeant looking up sharply, a civilian waiting nervously near a bench, froze, their attention magnetically drawn to the raw human drama unfolding before them. Their expressions were a mix of shock, morbid curiosity, and uneasy sympathy, primarily directed at the young man radiating such profound, wounded fury. The space between Finn and Luna felt vast, an uncrossable chasm forged from betrayal and handcuffs, yet simultaneously suffocatingly intimate, charged with the shared, poisonous history only they fully understood. Finn's mind, in the seconds following his scream, was a maelstrom. Images flashed with brutal clarity: Alex's laugh, suddenly silenced, Luna's concerned eyes, now revealed as treacherous, the crime scene photos he'd obsessively studied, the seemingly insignificant detail Baker had mentioned days ago that had finally clicked, the piece that made the horrifying picture complete. The certainty of her guilt was an iron rod down his spine, hardening his rage into something cold and sharp. His threat wasn't empty, it was a vow etched in acid on his soul. He didn't just mean the court sentence. He meant the loss of her freedom, the stripping away of the life she'd built on Alex's grave, the crushing weight of public condemnation, the knowledge that everyone would see her for the monster she was. He meant the disintegration of her carefully constructed facade. He meant the relentless pursuit of justice, not just by the state, but by him. He would be there at every hearing, a silent, accusing presence. He would ensure the world knew the depth of her deception. He would dedicate himself to seeing every possible consequence, every ounce of suffering the law could extract, visited upon her. His scream wasn't just anger, it was the declaration of a personal crusade. The pain would be eternal, a life sentence of infamy and regret he would personally witness and ensure. As the raw echo of his voice finally faded, absorbed by the indifferent walls and the stunned silence of the onlookers, a different kind of intensity settled over Finn. The explosive rage condensed into a chilling, focused determination. His trembling didn't cease, but its nature changed, less the tremor of uncontrolled fury, more the vibration of a tightly coiled spring, primed for relentless action. He stopped straining against the officer's grip, his body still taut, but his energy now directed inward, forging his pain and fury into an unbreakable resolve. His eyes, still locked on Luna as Baker began to gently but firmly guide her towards the heavy door leading to the cells, held no plea, no flicker of doubt. Only the cold, hard promise of retribution. Luna, for the briefest instant as she was turned towards the door, might have met his gaze. Or perhaps it was just a trick of the harsh light. But if she did, she would have seen nothing resembling the man she thought she knew. She saw the embodiment of consequence. She saw the furious, grieving specter of her victim. She saw the unwavering herald of her downfall. Finn's final, silent stare, burning with the unspoken continuation of his vow, "You will pay. I will make sure of it," followed her as she disappeared from view, a searing brand marking the end of everything that had been, and the grim, furious beginning of his quest to ensure the price she paid was absolute, devastating, and forever etched in the annals of the justice he now clung to as his only salvation. The slammed door reverberated not just in the lobby, but deep within Finn's being, the starting gun for a very different, infinitely darker race. The crime was hers. The payment? That would be his life's work. Sheila's decision to live or die. As she works to save Steffi Forrester, Sheila Sharp is going to have to make a decision that could mean the difference between life and death. As Sheila takes action to safeguard Steffi for her insane grandchild, will Luna Nozawa perish? Sheila Sharp must make a decision. Sheila loves her son John Finn Finnegan as much as she loves her granddaughter. But regrettably, it appears that Sheila might be forced to decide between Finn's wife and his daughter. Since there is no other way to prevent Sheila from killing Steffi, will she be compelled to kill Luna? Luna is certain that the only reason Finn will not pardon her and raise her is because of Steffi. Regretfully, Luna cannot be persuaded of anything else. She nearly killed Steffi once before, and Finn has told her time and time again that she cannot be in his life. Luna is ready to kill and is still committed to removing Steffi from Finn's life. How is Sheila going to help her? Sheila Sharp is unaware of Luna Nozawa's level of derangement. Luna visited Sheila to bid her farewell. Sheila was concerned, though, when Luna admitted that she had one more task to complete before leaving town. At that point, Remy Price arrived at Il Giardino and informed Sheila of Luna's extreme derangement. Sheila had to warn Steffi, but she also concluded that it was a life-or-death scenario. Sheila's hunt for Steffi was met with resistance from Taylor Hayes until she finally told her that Steffi was in serious danger. It wasn't until she saw Luna's fortune teller and put the pieces together that Sheila realized how serious the situation was. Finally, Sheila ran to the beach house to stop her and ran out the door. The trap that Steffi Forrester is in. When Steffi arrived at the beach home for her rendezvous, she had no idea what she was getting into. However, Sheila shows over and tries to calm Luna down before she harms Steffi after Luna gets the drop on her and is holding her at gunpoint. Can Sheila take charge while Steffi tries to reason with Luna? Sheila is unlikely to murder Luna in a cold-blooded manner. But according to previews, Sheila puts herself between Steffi and Luna to shield her from Luna. Will Sheila assault Luna, attempt to take the gun away, and then shoot Luna? Will Sheila ultimately redeem herself from her past and save Steffi from her would-be killer? The suffocating scent of salt spray and imminent violence hung thick in the air of the Forrester beach house, a stark contrast to the deceptive serenity of the ocean waves crashing just beyond the glass doors, where Sheila Sharp, a woman whose very name was synonymous with chaos and crimson consequences, found herself teetering on the razor's edge of an unthinkable abyss, forced to perform a brutal calculus of love and survival that threatened to shatter the fragile veneer of redemption she'd desperately clung to since re-entering her son Finn's fragile world. Mere moments ago, propelled by a chilling cocktail of fragmented clues, Luna Nozawa's cryptic, unsettling farewell laced with ominous finality, Remy Price's frantic, wide-eyed testimony painting a portrait of Luna's descent into terrifying derangement, and the frantic, desperate pleas finally breaking through Taylor Hayes' wall of justified suspicion, Sheila had raced against time, a phantom fueled by pure, primal maternal terror, not for herself, but for the woman she had once tormented. Steffi Forrester, Finn's wife, the mother of her grandson, the linchpin of her son's happiness and her own desperate bid for acceptance. Bursting into the scene, she was met with the horrifying tableau she'd feared: Steffi, pale but defiant, backed against the elegant but now menacing furniture, the cold, unblinking eye of Luna's gun leveled unwaveringly at her heart, while Luna herself, a figure transformed from the seemingly meek young woman into a vessel of terrifying, single-minded obsession, radiated a chilling certainty, her eyes burning with the conviction that Steffi was the sole, immovable obstacle blocking her path to Finn's forgiveness and the paternal love she craved with pathological intensity. Finn's unambiguous rejection, his repeated, firm declarations that Luna could have no place in his life after her previous near-fatal assault on Steffi, had not served as a deterrent. Instead, they had festered, twisting into an unshakable delusion within Luna's fractured psyche: eliminate Steffi, and Finn would finally see her, embrace her, be the father she demanded. Hearing Luna's hissed justifications, Sheila understood with chilling clarity the depth of the young woman's delusion. Reason was a language Luna could no longer comprehend, her reality warped by a toxic brew of rejection, entitlement, and burgeoning madness, leaving Sheila standing in the gulf between them, the air crackling with lethal potential, her own tumultuous history with firearms a grotesque echo in the room. Steffi's voice, strained but remarkably steady, cut through the tension, attempting to pierce Luna's delusional armor with logic and pleas for sanity, reminding her of Hayes, of Kelly, of the irrevocable damage murder would inflict, her words brave but seemingly bouncing off the hardened shell of Luna's resolve, each syllable only tightening Luna's finger on the trigger, her expression a mask of terrifying resolve. Sheila's mind, usually a whirlwind of impulsive fury, raced with terrifying speed, a brutal equation forming: on one side, Luna Nozawa, her son Finn's biological daughter, a connection forged in biology but strained by circumstance and now severed by psychosis, a young woman spiraling into the kind of darkness Sheila knew intimately, yet whose life still represented a thread, however frayed, to Finn. On the other side, Steffi Forrester, the woman Sheila had once tried to destroy, the woman who embodied everything Sheila had envied and resented, yet who had become, through Finn's unwavering love and the shared bond of Hayes, the absolute cornerstone of her son's existence, his happiness, his stability, his very lifeblood. Killing Luna in cold blood, an execution in this charged standoff, was anathema to Sheila's current, fragile state. It wasn't just murder, it would be the annihilation of any hope of Finn ever truly seeing her as anything other than the monster of his childhood nightmares, a confirmation of every dark expectation, a plunge back into the abyss she'd clawed her way out of, and a betrayal of the tentative, desperate love she felt for this granddaughter, however lost Luna now seemed. Yet, the alternative, standing paralyzed, watching Luna fulfill her deadly intent, witnessing Steffi's life extinguished before her eyes, was utterly unthinkable. It meant the destruction of Finn's world, the shattering of his heart, the end of his bright future, plunging him into a grief and rage from which he might never recover, a failure Sheila would not, survive emotionally. The spoilers whispering of Sheila positioning herself as a human shield weren't just tactical, they were symbolic of her entire agonizing position, interposing her body, her very soul, between the destructive force she once embodied, now mirrored horrifically in Luna, and the life she now recognized as utterly essential to her son's survival. The decision crystallized not as a choice, but as an instinctual eruption of a love so fierce it burned away hesitation: protect Steffi, protect Finn's heart, protect Hayes's mother, at any cost. As Luna's focus momentarily wavered, distracted by Steffi's pleading or perhaps a fractional hesitation born of Sheila's sudden, purposeful movement, Sheila didn't consciously choose violence. She launched herself forward with the desperate, feral energy of a mother whose cub is threatened, a blur of motion fueled by adrenaline and absolute necessity, her target not Luna herself, but the deadly instrument in her hand. The world dissolved into a chaotic, horrifying tangle of limbs, the shocking impact as Sheila collided with Luna, the deafening, bone-jarring report of the gun firing wildly into the ceiling, plaster raining down like morbid confetti, the sickening struggle for control over the cold, slick metal, Luna's enraged screams mingling with Sheila's guttural grunts of exertion and Steffi's sharp cry of terror. It wasn't a calculated execution, it was a brutal, desperate wrestling match for survival played out on a knife edge, a life-or-death ballet where every wrench, every shove, every gasp could mean the difference between salvation and utter catastrophe. In that heart-stopping, chaotic scuffle, bodies crashing against furniture, the gun a deadly serpent writhing between them, the unthinkable happened: another deafening explosion ripped through the beach house, a sound so final it seemed to freeze the very air. The struggle ceased abruptly. Silence, thick and suffocating, descended, broken only by the frantic gasps of the women and the relentless, indifferent rhythm of the ocean outside. Sheila found herself sprawled, disoriented, the acrid smell of gunpowder stinging her nostrils, the metallic weight of the gun now chillingly inert in her own trembling hand. Her gaze, wide with dawning horror, snapped downwards, not towards Steffi, still miraculously upright and wide-eyed against the wall, but towards Luna. The younger woman lay crumpled, unnaturally still, a grotesque, rapidly spreading crimson stain blossoming across the fabric of her dress, a dark, wet accusation blooming on the polished floor beneath her. The color drained from Sheila's face, replaced by a pallor of utter shock. Had she, in the desperate, uncontrolled frenzy to disarm Luna, to shield Steffi, inadvertently pulled the trigger? Had Luna's own convulsive grip caused the fatal discharge? In the immediate, horrifying aftermath, the precise mechanics were irrelevant, lost in the devastating result. The gun, the instrument Sheila knew all too well, had spoken its terrible language once more, and Sheila was holding it, standing over the lifeless body of her son's daughter, the granddaughter she had just vowed internally she couldn't coldly kill, but whose life had been extinguished in the violent maelstrom of her own intervention. The potential for heroism, saving Steffi, the ultimate act of sacrificial love for Finn, curdled instantly into the ash of a devastating paradox. She had stopped Luna. She had saved Steffi. Steffi was alive, Finn's world remained intact. But the cost? Sheila looked down at her hands, not yet visibly stained, but feeling the phantom warmth of Luna's blood, the crushing weight of the gun. Had she redeemed herself by saving one life, or had she irrevocably damned herself by being the proximate cause of another's death, especially this death? The life and death decision was made in a split second of desperate action, but its consequences, the potential redemption forever intertwined with the specter of a new, profound damnation, the salvation of Finn's happiness potentially poisoned by the means of its achievement, the haunting image of Luna's still form, would echo through every remaining beat of Sheila Sharp's tormented existence, a chilling reminder that sometimes, the price of protecting one life is measured in the irreversible loss of another, leaving her forever suspended between the desperate love of a mother and the inescapable shadow of the killer she both fought and feared within herself. The gunshots' echo faded, leaving only the deafening silence of an impossible choice fulfilled, its terrible resonance just beginning. Luna! His voice wasn't human, it was a ragged, sonic boom ripped from the depths of his gut, raw and shredded, echoing off the close alley walls, bouncing back at him amplified, a monstrous sound that seemed to momentarily freeze the very air. You stupid! Reckless! Selfish! Idiot! Look! Just look at what you've done. He wasn't just yelling, he was projecting his fury, each word a physical blow aimed directly at her cowering form, spittle flying from his lips, his face contorted into a mask of anguish and rage so profound it was almost unrecognizable. He jabbed a trembling, accusatory finger towards Baker, who had now fully turned, placing his body slightly between Finn and Luna, his expression hardening into wary alertness. You see him? You see that? That's arrests. That's jail. That's your whole future gone, Luna. Smashed. Thrown away like garbage because you couldn't just listen. Couldn't just stop. The words tumbled out in a furious, hyperventilating torrent, punctuated by sharp, ragged breaths. He took another step forward, ignoring Baker's sharp, "Sir, step back. Stay where you are," his entire being focused solely on Luna, on the devastating consequences of her actions that were now brutally, irrevocably manifest. I told you. I begged you. On my knees, Luna. Remember? It's too dangerous, I said. Baker isn't stupid, he's a vulture waiting, I said. It's not worth it. But no! His voice cracked, a raw, painful sound, betraying the anguish beneath the rage. Luna knew best. Luna had it all under control. Luna was too clever, too fast. Well, guess what, genius? Your cleverness just got you cuffed. Your speed ran you straight into a brick wall named reality.